Glass ceilings shattered. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom buzzed with San Francisco's elite. Tech moguls, venture capitalists, and environmental scientists gathered for the Global Climate Innovation Summit. Sophia Chen adjusted her simple navy blazer, feeling out of place among designer suits and cocktail dresses. At 32, she had earned her place at this table through brilliant research on sustainable energy solutions, not family connections or venture funding. "Dr. Chen, he's watching you again," whispered Marcus, her research partner, nodding discreetly toward the bar. Sophia didn't need to look to know who he was. Alexander Reed, Xander to his inner circle, the 36-year-old CEO of quantum tech whose net worth exceeded the GDP of small nations. She had declined 3 meeting requests from his office in the past month. "Let him look," she replied, sipping sparkling water. "I'm not interested in helping him greenwash his data centers." The microphone squealed as the event coordinator announced the open forum. First question comes from Mr. Alexander Reed. The room hushed as Xander approached the microphone, his tall frame commanding attention in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His angular features and penetrating gray eyes had graced countless magazine covers, usually accompanied by headlines about his technological innovations or notorious bachelor lifestyle. "My question is for Dr. Sophia Chen," he announced, his deep voice resonating through the ballroom. "Your research on carbon-negative technologies is groundbreaking. Quantum Tech would like to offer you full funding, $20 million to implement your solutions across our global infrastructure." Sophia felt all eyes turned to her. The offer was astronomical, enough to fund her lab for a decade, but she had done her homework on quantum tech. "That's quite generous, Mr. Reed," she replied, approaching the second microphone. "Unfortunately, I must decline." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Quantum Tech's environmental record speaks for itself," she continued steadily. "Your data centers consume more electricity than entire countries, while your PR department touts minimal efficiency improvements as revolutionary. I won't help you claim environmental credentials you haven't earned." The room fell silent. No one refused Alexander Reed, especially not publicly. His expression remained impassive, but Sophia noticed his jaw tighten. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately, Dr. Chen. I believe there's been a misunderstanding about our intentions." "There's no misunderstanding," Sophia replied. "Your company's environmental impact reports are public record, as are your lobbying efforts against carbon taxation. My research isn't for sale as a marketing tool." Someone in the back of the room began to applaud, followed by others until the applause spread across half the audience. Xander's face darkened momentarily before he recovered with a practiced smile. "Your principles are admirable, Dr. Chen. I respect your position." He nodded curtly and returned to his table, where his executive team huddled around him immediately. The forum continued, but Sophia barely heard the subsequent questions. Her hands trembled slightly as adrenaline coursed through her body. Had she just committed career suicide? Later, as she gathered her notes, a slender woman in an elegant pantsuit approached. "Dr. Chen, I'm Julia Winters, Mr. Reed's chief of staff." She handed Sophia a business card with a handwritten note on the back. "He'd still like to meet, privately." Sophia glanced at the card, then at Julia. "My answer remains the same." He expected that response. Julia smiled thinly. "He said to tell you he's not accustomed to being challenged, or refused, but he finds both refreshing." As Sophia left the hotel, her phone exploded with notifications. Someone had recorded her exchange with Xander and posted it online. By morning, she would be either a hero or unemployable, possibly both. What she couldn't know was that in his penthouse suite above, Alexander Reed watched the clip repeatedly, a strange fascination growing with each viewing. For the first time in years, someone had seen past his wealth and power to hold him accountable. "Find me everything on Dr. Sophia Chen," he told Julia. "Her research, background, associates, everything." "Are you planning to discredit her?" Julia asked cautiously. Xander's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No, I'm going to understand her. And then I'm going to win her over." Calculated pursuit. 3 weeks after the conference, Sophia stared at the email in disbelief. The Environmental Science Foundation had awarded her lab an unprecedented grant, $5 million for her carbon sequestration research. The foundation was known for its rigorous selection process and typically awarded much smaller amounts. "We got it!" Marcus exclaimed, reading over her shoulder. "This changes everything!" Sophia frowned. "It doesn't make sense. We just submitted this application last month." Her suspicions deepened the following day when she discovered the foundation had received a generous anonymous contribution earmarked for climate innovation. She didn't believe in coincidences, especially not million-dollar ones appearing weeks after refusing Alexander Reed. Her theory was confirmed when she arrived at her lab to find Xander himself waiting, casually leaning against the wall outside her office. "Congratulations on your grant, Dr. Chen," he said, his voice betraying no emotion, though his eyes studied her intently. Sophia crossed her arms. "Strange timing, isn't it? Almost as if someone wanted to buy my research without my consent." "The foundation makes its own decisions," he replied smoothly. "I merely pointed them toward deserving work." "And what do you expect in return, Mr. Reed?" "Dinner." His response was immediate. "One conversation without cameras or audiences." "Just science," Sophia laughed incredulously. "You're either very persistent or completely unaccustomed to hearing no." "Both," he admitted with surprising candor. "But this isn't about your public rejection. Your research could revolutionize how we approach climate change. Quantum tech has resources that could accelerate implementation. The grant is sufficient." "Is it?" Xander stepped closer. "Your preliminary results suggest carbon-negative building materials could transform construction industries worldwide. But scaling requires infrastructure you don't have." Sophia hesitated. He had clearly studied her work thoroughly. "One dinner," he persisted. "If you're still unimpressed by my company's environmental commitment, I won't approach you again." Against her better judgment, she agreed. That evening, instead of the elaborate restaurant she expected, his driver brought her to a small laboratory facility overlooking the bay. "My personal project," Xander explained, leading her inside where a team of engineers worked with experimental materials. "We're developing quantum computing architecture that requires 90% less energy." For hours, they discussed technical specifications, thermal efficiency, and materials science. Sophia found herself grudgingly impressed, not just by the technology, but by Xander's genuine knowledge. This wasn't the superficial understanding of a CEO reading briefing notes. "Why hide this?" she asked finally. "This contradicts everything your company publicly represents." Something vulnerable flickered across his face. "Because it might fail. And Alexander Reed doesn't fail publicly." That single moment of honesty disarmed her more than all his wealth or charm. Over the following weeks, Xander appeared repeatedly in Sophia's professional orbit, funding a climate conference where she presented, attending the same sustainability panel discussions, even donating state-of-the-art equipment to her university department. Her colleagues were impressed. Sophia remained wary. Yet she couldn't deny his technical insights were valuable, and gradually, professional consultations evolved into lengthy discussions over coffee. Then dinners where conversation drifted beyond science to literature, philosophy, and personal histories. "You're actually seeing him, aren't you?" Marcus confronted her after Xander's third visit to their lab. "It's professional," Sophia insisted. "The way he looks at you isn't professional," Marcus countered. "And you're different around him, more animated. Just be careful. Men like him are used to acquiring whatever they want." Sophia dismissed his concerns, but that night found herself studying her reflection before meeting Xander, wondering when exactly Alexander Reed had transformed from antagonist to something dangerously close to a friend, perhaps something more. What troubled her most wasn't his persistent pursuit, but how easily she'd begun to anticipate their encounters, how his unexpected text messages made her smile despite herself, and how his voice had become a sound she unconsciously listened for in crowded rooms. "This is a strategic alliance," she reminded herself firmly. Nothing more. But as Xander's car arrived and she saw him step out, holding not flowers, but a research paper she'd mentioned wanting to read, Sophia felt the careful barriers she'd constructed beginning to crumble beneath the weight of an uncomfortable truth. She was genuinely beginning to like the man she had once publicly humiliated. Unexpected connections. Rain lashed against the windows of Xander's private jet as they flew north along the California coast. Sophia had finally agreed to visit his experimental research facility in Oregon, where quantum tech was implementing her carbon sequestration technology on an industrial scale. "You're quiet," Xander observed, studying her across the cabin. "I'm still processing that you renamed an entire division Chen Sustainability Initiatives without consulting me," she replied, though without the anger she would have felt weeks earlier. A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Would you have agreed if I'd asked?" "Absolutely not. Hence my approach." He leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "Your name carries credibility mine doesn't in environmental circles. It's not exploitation. It's acknowledging whose vision is driving this forward." 2 months of working alongside Alexander Reed had revealed layers Sophia hadn't anticipated. Beneath his calculated exterior was a brilliant mind that could follow and challenge her most complex theories. His ruthless business efficiency coexisted with unexpected patience when explaining quantum computing to her graduate students. He remained enigmatic, revealing personal details sparingly, yet she'd begun to recognize subtle shifts in his expressions that betrayed more emotion than he verbalized. The facility exceeded her expectations. A sprawling campus powered entirely by renewable energy, where her theoretical models were being transformed into practical applications. As they toured the laboratories, she noticed how the scientists responded to Xander, with respect rather than fear. "You've never brought anyone here before, have you?" she asked as they walked along the cliffside path that evening, the research buildings illuminated behind them. "What makes you say that?" "The way everyone watches us. Like they're witnessing something unprecedented." Xander was quiet for a long moment, the wind ruffling his usually impeccable hair. "They are. My personal and professional lives don't typically intersect." "Which am I?" The question escaped before she could reconsider. Instead of answering, he stopped walking, turning to face the ocean. "My parents died when I was 14. Car accident. I was sent to live with my uncle, who made it clear I was an unwanted burden." His voice remained steady, factual. "Every achievement, every company I built, began as proof I wasn't worthless." The confession stunned her. Not just its content, but that he'd shared it at all. Sophia realized this was the first truly unguarded glimpse behind his carefully constructed persona. "The night we met," she said softly, "when I refused your offer publicly, it wasn't about the money," he finished. "It was about being deemed inadequate, unworthy." The rain began again, gentle now, misting around them. "We should go back," she suggested, but neither moved. Sophia. Her name sounded different in his voice, almost reverent. "I've never met anyone who sees me as clearly as you do, who challenges me to be better." When he kissed her, the last rational barriers of her resistance dissolved. His touch was tentative at first, questioning, then deepened as she responded. In that moment, titles disappeared. He wasn't a billionaire CEO and she wasn't an environmental scientist. They were simply two people connecting in the rain. Later that night, in his oceanfront residence, Sophia traced the contours of his face as moonlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows. Their bodies entwined beneath silk sheets, the vulnerability of physical intimacy revealing truths neither had voiced. "Tell me something real," she whispered. "Something no journalist or business partner knows." Xander's fingers trailed along her spine. "I'm afraid," he admitted, "of losing this, of losing you." "You don't lose things," she teased gently. "You acquire them." His expression grew serious. "Not you. You can't be acquired or possessed." He brushed her hair back from her face. "That's why what I feel for you terrifies me." Sophia recognized the unspoken confession. Neither was ready to name this fragile connection taking root between them, too new, too unexpected for both. "Stay tomorrow," he murmured against her skin. "The foundation board wants to meet you." She nodded, knowing this was no longer just about professional collaboration. Something fundamental had shifted, leaving her simultaneously exhilarated and apprehensive. What Sophia couldn't see was the notification illuminating Xander's phone on the nightstand, a message from Julia marked urgent. Media uncovered connection between Foundation grant and quantum tech. Reporter requesting comment on allegations of manipulating Dr. Chen. Advise response strategy immediately. Shattered trust. Did you know about this? Sophia slammed her laptop shut as Xander entered her temporary office at the research facility. Her voice trembled with barely controlled fury. He assessed her rigid posture, the flush of anger across her cheekbones. About what, specifically? Don't play games, Alexander. She rarely used his full name. The Environmental Science Foundation is a subsidiary of Quantum Tech Ventures. My grant, the conference sponsorships, even my department's new equipment, all directly from you, funneled through shell organizations to appear independent. Xander's expression remained impassive, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. Who told you? The Washington Post. She thrust her phone at him. The headline glared, Tech Billionaire's Elaborate Scheme to Win Over Critic. Below it, a detailed expose of the financial connections between quantum tech and every opportunity that had coincidentally come Sophia's way since their confrontation. It's not what you think, he began. Then what is it? Her voice rose. Because it looks exactly like you orchestrated an elaborate manipulation after I publicly rejected you. Was any of it real, or was I just another acquisition target? Sophia, I trusted you. The admission seemed to cost her. I defended you to colleagues who warned me this was exactly who you are. Xander moved toward her, but she stepped back. The funding arrangements existed before we met, he explained. Yes, I accelerated the grant approval, but your research deserved it. And us? The question hung between them. Was that strategic too? Sleep with the environmental scientist? Neutralize a potential critic? Pain flashed across his features. You know that's not true, do I? Sophia laughed bitterly. The man I thought I knew wouldn't hide behind shell companies and proxies. He would have been transparent. I was transparent where it mattered. With you, about us. No. She shook her head. You revealed exactly what you wanted me to see. Calculated vulnerability to win my trust. Julia appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the board is requesting an emergency meeting. The story's gaining traction. Sophia gathered her belongings. I'm returning to San Francisco. You can't leave now, Xander said, his composure slipping. Let me explain everything to the board, show you the complete records. I've seen enough. She met his gaze directly. You know what hurts most? I was actually falling in love with you, but that person doesn't exist. The words struck him like a physical blow. Sophia, please. I resign from all quantum tech initiatives, effective immediately. Transfer the research rights back to my university. Her voice steadied as she retreated behind professional formality. My team will collect our data and equipment next week. As she left, Xander remained motionless, watching the door close between them. For a man who controlled vast technological empires, who could purchase almost anything, the loss of her respect felt catastrophic. Damage control options? Julia asked quietly. None. His voice was hollow. She's right about everything. Not everything, Julia countered. Your feelings for her were genuine. It doesn't matter now. The following weeks passed in a blur of crisis management. Xander authorized complete financial transparency regarding the foundation, appointed independent directors, and established an ethics committee with oversight powers. Professionally, these measures helped stabilize Quantum Tech's reputation. Personally, he was unraveling. He sent no flowers, made no grand gestures. Every message from him would appear manipulative now. Instead, he quietly transferred all intellectual property rights to Sophia's university with no strings attached, then stepped back from the environmental initiatives that had connected them. Sophia, meanwhile, retreated into her work, ignoring concerned glances from colleagues as she spent increasingly long hours in the lab. The media attention eventually faded, but the sense of betrayal lingered. Late one evening, as rain pelted against her office windows, Marcus placed a cup of tea on her desk. You miss him. It wasn't a question. I miss who I thought he was, she corrected. Have you considered that perhaps that person is real? Marcus suggested carefully. People are complex, Sophia. His methods were questionable, but his actions since the story broke, returning your patents, withdrawing completely, suggest genuine remorse. Or excellent PR strategy. Marcus sighed. You know, for a scientist, you're being remarkably resistant to new evidence. She glanced up. What evidence? Quantum Tech announced yesterday they're implementing your carbon sequestration technology across all facilities worldwide at considerable cost to shareholders. Alexander Reed personally guaranteed no staff reductions despite the expense. He placed a press release on her desk. No publicity campaign, no self-congratulatory interviews. Just quietly doing exactly what you challenged him to do that first night. Genuine redemption 6 months passed. Autumn painted the Berkeley Hills in russet and gold as Sophia guided a group of international climate scientists through her expanded laboratory. The Chen Carbon Initiative, independently funded now through a consortium of universities, had grown beyond her expectations. And these results are reproducible at scale? Asked Dr. Yoshida from Tokyo University. Absolutely, Sophia confirmed. We've implemented the technology in 3 urban development projects with consistent carbon-negative outcomes. Remarkable, commented another visitor. How did you secure the testing sites? Most developers resist experimental materials. Before Sophia could respond, Marcus interjected. Anonymous industry partner. They've provided access to construction sites in 12 countries now. Later, Sophia confronted him in her office. Anonymous partner? You mean Alexander Reed? Marcus didn't deny it. He's been quietly implementing your technology globally. No publicity, no quantum tech branding. Just results. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have accepted the data if I had? When she didn't answer, he continued. Someone's been purchasing environmental patents worldwide and placing them in public domain. Manufacturing techniques, carbon capture methods, everything that could accelerate climate solutions. Reed, she guessed. Anonymous benefactor. Marcus handed her a folder. But the transactions trace back to a shell company registered the day after you left Oregon. That evening, Sophia found herself standing outside Quantum Tech's San Francisco headquarters. The impulse that brought her here seemed irrational now. What did she expect? That Alexander Reed would be working late? That some chance encounter might clarify the confusion of emotions she'd suppressed for months? Dr. Chen? She turned to find Julia approaching, looking surprised but not displeased. Is he here? Sophia asked simply. Julia's expression softened. No, he's not in San Francisco anymore. I see. He resigned as CEO 3 months ago, Julia explained. He's been working from the Oregon facility, focusing on research instead of corporate management. The revelation stunned Sophia. Alexander Reed stepping back from power was unprecedented. Why? He said running the company was preventing him from doing the work that mattered. Julia studied Sophia carefully. The board nearly revolted, but the research division has produced more innovations in these months than in the previous 3 years. Why are you telling me this? Because he never explained his feelings to you, Julia replied. He thought actions would speak more truthfully than words. The next morning found Sophia driving north along the coastal highway. The journey gave her time to examine her own motivations. Was she seeking closure? Validation? Or something more complicated? The research campus appeared much as she remembered, though expanded now. When she identified herself at security, the guard looked startled but immediately granted access. Suggesting her name remained significant here. She found him not in the executive offices, but in a laboratory, sleeves rolled up, working alongside researchers testing material samples. He looked different, his hair slightly longer, his expression more focused than imperious. He noticed her immediately. The sample in his hands nearly slipped as he stared, clearly disbelieving her presence. Sophia, you bought every environmental patent you could find and made them freely available, she stated without preamble. You stepped down as CEO. You're implementing carbon-negative materials in every new construction project globally. He set down the equipment carefully. Those facts are accurate. Why? Initially, because you were right about corporate responsibility. He met her gaze directly. Then, because it was the right thing to do, regardless of whether you ever knew about it. They stood in silence, the laboratory continuing to bustle around them, though people gave them a wide berth, sensing the importance of the moment. "I owe you an apology," he finally said. "Not just for the deception, but for thinking I needed strategic maneuvers to gain your approval. You deserved honesty from the beginning." "And now?" she asked. "What are you seeking now?" "Nothing." The simplicity of his answer resonated with truth. "I'm trying to become someone worthy of the person you once thought I could be, whether or not you ever know it." The vulnerability in his expression, unguarded, without calculation, touched something within her that had remained tender despite her best efforts to harden it. "I received an invitation to present at the Global Climate Summit next month," she said. "Your name was conspicuously absent from the speaker list despite Quantum Tech's recent innovations." I declined. It seemed inappropriate to claim credit. Sophia took a deep breath. "I requested you as a co-presenter for my session on industrial implementation of carbon sequestration. The committee was surprised but agreed." Hope flickered in his eyes, quickly tempered. "Why would you do that?" "Because the work matters more than our history. Because true sustainability requires collaboration, even with difficult partners." She offered a tentative smile. "And because I'm still curious about who Alexander Reed really is, beneath all the strategies and defenses." "And if you don't like what you find?" he asked quietly. "Then at least I'll know I gave truth a fair chance." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his gray eyes. "I never stopped loving you, Sophia. But I needed to become someone capable of loving unselfishly." She didn't move away. "I'm still not convinced that's possible for someone who built an empire on acquisition." "Then let me prove it, one day at a time, with complete transparency." In the laboratory light, surrounded by the evidence of his transformed priorities, Sophia made a scientist's decision to test a hypothesis rather than reject it outright. She extended her hand, the summit presentation. "Let's start there." As their fingers touched, both recognized this wasn't forgiveness yet, nor a promise of reconciliation. It was something more fundamental, a willingness to examine evidence without prejudice, to consider that people, like the carbon molecules they studied, could transform under the right conditions into something entirely new. Outside the laboratory windows, the Oregon coastline stretched beneath gathering clouds, a perfect backdrop for two people beginning the delicate process of rebuilding trust on more solid foundations than before.